Ladies and gentlemen, in today's episode of WTF, which actually stands for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, bada bing, bada boom, joking, it stands for what the fuck. This is the highlight from today's press conference on the announcement of the arrest of the January 6th pipe bomber. I apologize for having sworn too early, so early, without giving you the earmuffs warning. Retrospective earmuffs, behold.
You know, folks, this case involved millions of pieces of data. And it is a huge win because it was like finding a needle in a haystack. So much of this evidence was very specific, but a lot of it was also very general. For example, there were 233,000 black end caps of the type that were used in this case. I want you to think about the fact that the FBI had to go through the sale of every one of them to try to find commonality with an individual, along with the purchase of the pipe itself, the cap ends, the wires, the steel, and the 9-volt batteries. Every one of those had to be mined and remined to the point where we were able to then connect. And make no mistake, it was this administration, it was this president who made the decision that we were going to use all of our efforts to get it done, and get it done they did.
Have you recovered the notable sneakers? Have you done surveillance of this suspect from that aha moment to when you exercised the search warrants today? And obviously this happened on January 5th into January 6th. How should the public look at this case separate from all of the cases related to what transpired on January 6th and the president's subsequent pardons?
I'm going to let Director Patel take the evidence part. We have to be careful again. You've asked very good investigative questions, but this is ongoing, very active. But America should feel safer today. We say a pipe bomb. These are bombs. These were live, active bombs that were placed in Washington, D.C. Director.
Thank you. This shows you how much detail you and the American public have paid attention to this case. Of course, we analyzed everything that you're seeing on this poster board and information that you will see through the formal charging process and court process. But we want to let that evidence speak for itself because, again, we do not want to disrupt the accountability that we owe the American public. Yes, you heard about the cell phone tower data. Yes, you heard about, of course, we surveil individuals who we think we're going to blow up American citizens. But how and when we do it and why we do it is not something we're ever going to reveal unless the Department of Justice deems it fit at trial. So we appreciate your attention to detail and your hardcore investigative work, but you can just imagine some of those same skills are being utilized by this FBI, this Department of Justice, our partners, the ATF, and everybody across the board. And this is an interagency win for the American people.
We appreciate your attention to detail. I tell you, you know why I don't give compliment sandwiches? Because I don't like compliment sandwiches, because I'm skeptical of compliment sandwiches. When anyone says, Viva, you know, you did really good here. It's like, all right, we'll get to the bad part. When anyone comes up and starts stroking my ego, I get the impression that they're trying to sell me something. Now, I'm not coming to any foregone conclusions here, but today is the day where they have finally announced, one short month after Steve Baker's expose, where he identified who he believed might be the suspected pipe bomber. 1 month after that, 5 years less a month after the statute of limitations, which I guess if they're going to come down with charges, they've got to do it before the statute of limitations. They've announced an arrest in the pipe bomb case. And no, I would love to have been a fly in the room when Steve Baker's watching this, because I'd love to know what he thinks about this. It was not the individual that Steve Baker identified in his expose that appeared in the Blaze a month ago that, you know, has caused some ripples, but mostly still waters, which was more suspicious than the waves it ought to have caused. The man's name, we're just going to do the 30,000-foot overview before we bring in Kyle Seraphin. And I've invited Julie Kelly on as well if she wants to come talk about this, not in any confrontational way, because at the end of the day, I think all three of us are somewhat skeptical even of this narrative, because on the one hand, it would seemingly contradict Steve Baker's story and what Kyle Seraphin believed. On the other hand, it would also seemingly contradict what Julie Kelly believes, because she doesn't believe that the pipe bombs were even placed the night before, such that that's the timeline the FBI is giving for the having planted these bombs by this alleged suspect. Kyle is going to come on at 10 after the hour, because we're going to go through the affidavit. We're going to go through the evidence. We're going to go through the references, cross-references in Loudermilk's report. But the news of the day, if you haven't seen it, is that Brian Cole Jr., the DC pipe bomb suspect, has been arrested. Law enforcement sources say Brian Cole is a resident of Virginia. The suspect who allegedly planted the pipe bombs blocks away from the yada, yada, yada has been identified as Brian Cole Jr. of Woodbridge, Virginia, according to sources. It's now been identified. The man is a 30-year-old man, the son of a bondsman. They live in a very nice house in Virginia. Apparently, the kid was working for his father's bonding company for the last 5 years and lives at home. I'd make the joke, but I'm not sure that many of you know that I used to live at home with my wife and our firstborn child while we were saving money to get a house. And we lived with my parents. So I can make the jokes about what kind of loser you have to be to live with your parents. I'm surprised we lived with my parents for so long, but set that aside. Sources say 30 custody is in custody, following 5 years of investigations, charged with the use of an explosive device, Pam Bondi said. They executed the warrant. We're going to get into this. They arrested Cole. He'll make his first court appearance on Friday. Authorities have not released further details about the man, but one federal law enforcement source has told the FBI is carrying out court-enforced activity at Cole's residence. We're going to get there. Cole's stepfather, Earl Donnett, told NBC News, step-grandfather. He spoke with his grandson, declined to comment further. Bondi said the investigation into the attempted bombing languished for You saw the comments there. What I found particularly interesting, and we'll cover this before Kyle gets in, is that earlier this morning, where they said, the news was reporting the man arrested in connection with the pipe bombs. Now, it's being alleged that he is the suspected individual who planted them. So not part of some conspiracy, not part of some team. Alleged that he is the one who was in the hoodie with the mask and the glasses, having planted them. Whereas earlier today they were saying, arrested in connection with could mean anything. Now we've gotten some clarity. They suspect that this is the guy who planted them. What's ultimately absolutely hilarious about this, and it was actually Kyle that pointed this out, and I said, it's amazing. Remember when Steve Baker was coming up with his story, when he released his story, and it relied on expert gait analysis, gait, G-A-I-T, how someone walks. And everyone's like, that's you can't determine anything based on gait. Gait analysis is it's like voodoo. This is from ABC News. This is December 4th. When was this? This was 8:26 this morning. Suspect arrested in the January 6th pipe bomb case. Sources. So let's go here. Federal authorities have arrested a Virginia man in connection with the placement of 2 pipe bombs outside the headquarters. Yada, yada, yada. Here we go. This is where I love. The arrest comes nearly 5 years after the discovery of the pipe bombs outside the RNC and the DNC headquarters on the afternoon of Jan 6, roughly 16 hours after they were placed by a suspect who has been seen on various surveillance cameras wearing gray hooded shorts, yada, yada, yada. Investigators described the suspect as having a severe gait, pointing to the movements seen in security camera footage. What's good for the gate is good for the gander. What gate is good for the goose is good for the gander. When they were, when Steve Baker was laying out his theory as to how it might have been the person who he suspected as being the person, the gate was no good. Gate was poppycock science. Now the investigators say, oh, this guy's got the same gait. So now that's an element of the evidence. The other question is, what the hell else was the other evidence? We're going to get into this. I watched the press conference. People can accuse me of being whatever. I was thoroughly disappointed. I was thoroughly disappointed because it really did come off as a big fat circle jerk. Now, there's nothing wrong with that when you're celebrating something of a massive accomplishment, which, if this turns out to be the case, should be the case. If this turns out to be the massive accomplishment of having finally cracked this case after 5 years, then you pat each other on the back. But even then, there's only so much patting on the back before people start to get a little nauseated. It felt like a circle jerk. Everybody congratulating everybody else, themselves, the administration. I wanted to hear some evidence. And you could say, well, the evidence was already in this affidavit, which we're going to go through as well. Zero evidence above and beyond what I just played for you in this show. Zero evidence other than Janine Pirro saying we matched the sale or purchase of the pipe bomb end cap, the pipe caps, and some batteries and some zero. And then there was some reference to pinging with the cell data. Other than that, I mean, zero. And I found that to be somewhat problematic. Kyle, knowing that you are even more not biased or partial, but you have a even more entrenched position on this. Did you watch the press conference?
I did.
What did you think of it?
I felt like it was very light on facts. The one that I would have liked to know is what have you learned very recently that made you change your opinion, and how did you land on the subject, and what is the ideology that predicated his connection? What the hell do you have to do with January 6th? I've read the affidavit as well, and I don't feel particularly impressed.
We're going to get into the affidavit, but you're saying what's interesting also, like I'm being maybe too hard and too analytical, but they said there was no new evidence, that there was no tip from the public. And then I believe I heard someone else say we got a tip and that's what we moved on. I believe I heard mutually conflicting information. I'm not saying they're trying to cheap out on the $500,000 plot, but it's a good point. Like, what the hell else new came in that allowed them now, 9 months into the FBI directorship, the new FBI, to come up with this evidence or this theory?
Well,
right
I have a theory for you.
Go ahead.
It's Dan Bongino's birthday. Happy birthday, Dan.
Is it Dan Bongino's birthday today?
Apparently, that's the serious stuff that the press secretary for the FBI has put out. So we got that this morning.
Hold on. Birthday. Let's see. December 4th, 1974. I'm not. Look, the thing is, I'm not being hard on anybody. I'm being equally.
Happy birthday, Dan! You got him. You got this guy that doesn't seem like it's even close to reality. So good job. I do think they're trying to wrap this up before these guys get thrown out at the end of the year. That seems to be the information I'm getting on the inside. Unsubstantiated. It's 2 points of contact right now inside the bureau, but people are telling me that there's a moving that is happening, and Dan Bongino's moving back to Florida. So, I hope so, because I don't want him to have that job, because I don't think that job's a good job. And then it sounds like Kash Patel's doing some things that are illogical, and he's moving up timeframes on things that shouldn't be. So he might be out too. And but either way, this indictment is weak. I actually started looking at indictments for this exact federal charge, and I grabbed a couple of them. I haven't been able to scan them yet, but they're all longer and they all follow very different formats. Usually when you do an indictment, you want to say why this person is the person. You say what the crime is, you send the background, you say what the evidence is that's going to link it, that gives you the probable cause to believe. But generally speaking, it has to do a little bit more with who that person is. This is the lightest background human person information. What do they call it? There's a section. It's called Identification of Brian J. Cole Jr. It might be the lightest that I've seen in a federal indictment.
Let's just do it. We'll go through it relatively quickly. It's not the longest thing on earth. It's
not.
7 pages, and we can skip the first 2 pages because it just describes what happened. So, affidavit in support of a criminal complaint.
Before you skip it, there's actually one little funny thing in there. In the background on January 6th, which happens on page 1, they give the criminal background. As usual, you have an affidavit. He explains who he is. This is an agent who's been in there since 2009, so he's been there plenty of time. That's like an experienced agent.
If I may pause you right there, though, just explain to people who might not know, you have the affidavit in support of the criminal complaint is one thing. This is the affidavit that comes. At what stage does this come? This is prior to the arrest, or this is prior to?
Yeah. So there's 2 ways that you can go about getting an arrest warrant. One of them is by information, and the other is by indictment. And so this is the information version, which means that you basically, as an FBI agent, as a law enforcement professional, whatever your level of authority is, you write up an affidavit in support of a criminal complaint that alleges that the following person has probable cause that they committed whatever the crime is. And then you take it to a judge, a magistrate judge, and you let them read it. And they agree that you've met the burden of probable cause. And then you raise your hand. A lot of times they do it over the phone now. And they will swear it out. You swear and attest that it is true to the best of your knowledge and ability. And that then they give you an arrest warrant. That is not the way the FBI does business overwhelmingly until January 6th. January 6th was actually a game changer for the criminal complaint game. If you went to FBI agents for the last 50 years and asked them how many criminal complaints they wrote out, the average number for an FBI agent at retirement would probably be 2 or less, maybe 1, maybe none. A lot of them did none. They just don't do it that way. They generally go to grand jury. That's the other way you go. You get an indictment. And a grand jury is you sit in a table and they bring in witnesses if necessary. And the United States attorney or the United States attorney's assistant, assistant United States attorney, will ask you certain questions and lead you down the fact pattern. And then the members of the grand jury can ask you questions of clarification if they want to know. And then they decide whether or not to return either no bill or a true bill. The true bill is the indictment, and then you can go and request an arrest warrant. But you don't always get an arrest warrant with an indictment. For whatever it's worth, the FBI oftentimes will get what's called a summons, which is what should have happened for a lot of J6 cases, where you just issue a thing saying, hey, we've indicted you. Please turn yourself in on this day, and then you'll get your, they don't call it an arraignment, they call it initial appearance in the federal system.
Oh, and we're going to get into what was carried out after this warrant for the arrest was issued, because I saw the chat when someone was saying, like, these were live bombs. Well, if this was suspected live bombs and they're going to arrest a guy who's allegedly placing live bombs, there might have been protocol for the arrest that might have been, to protect neighbors from the. We'll get there in a bit, but
yeah, they didn't do that. For
Yeah.
spoiler alert, they didn't do those things.
No, I know, and I can't borrow. I can't. This is your wisdom, and we're going to get to you sharing it in a bit. So you get the affidavit. What in terms of the relevant context for January 6th? I'm just looking through my employment with the FBI. Participated in many international domestic terrorism investigations. Okay, so
yeah, longtime agent. It's unusual that you would obscure the name of the person in the criminal complaint. That's a J6 sort of thing. Generally speaking, even people who do really sensitive stuff and go after cartels and really bad guys, they don't have their names redacted, but for some reason they do that in the DC circuit or in the EDVA. So that's happening. So they accuse him of 18 USC 844D Delta. That's actually really, really relevant. So we need to be keyed in on that. And the elements of that is that they maliciously destroyed or attempt to destroy, damage, or by means of fire or explosive material, this RNC and the DNC. So they're not actually doing the possession or the use of a explosive device, which would be a National Firearms Act violation, which is a different thing. They're saying, they're claiming that that's your attempt to damage or destroy, which means they have to make the argument that it's a viable or live device. Mm-hmm. And so that's relevant for people to understand when they're making this claim, and why you heard Pam Bondi in that clip saying over and over again, these were live, active bombs. There's no evidence that they were, including the FBI's own evidence they recently released, and contemporaneous stuff that we were told at the time, which was that there was no threat to us, that these were, the way that I was briefed on it when my team was doing surveillance on the previous targets we talked about was looks very bomb-like. And that is actually commensurate with the way that the FBI tends to describe things, either designed to function, which is a potentially functional device, or a hoax device. And these were looked at more as training, hoax, looked very bomb-like was the way they briefed it in the field to us. So just for relevance, there's a reason why they said the press conference the way they did.
Yeah, well, and if it turns out that they were actually inert or not susceptible, then I presume he would not be found guilty of that particular charge.
But one of them was obviously not. So the FBI released lab results. One of them was positive for a flame test, which means theoretically, like, the black powder was actually in the right proportions to be able to ignite, and the other one was not. It's also interesting the way they chose of disposing them. And this is something Steve Baker and I think even Julie Kelly and Darren Beatty did at the time. They mentioned that one of the devices was actually disabled in the field, which is not something you would do with a destructive device in a big city area like that, because it's a low order explosive. And you and I had this off camera, so I'll just tell people real quickly. The two types of explosive, generally speaking, is high order or low order, or high yield and low yield. And high yield is C4 and commercial dynamite, military dynamite, and actual explosives devices that are designed to do that at a high level, and they explode at a rate of 20,000 to 25,000 feet per second. And they are like cutting charges, and they can be used for actual demolition. And then you have the other thing. And that's the low order. And that's going to be your gunpowders, your black powders, your tannerites, and so on and so forth. And they explode, and they definitely will, destroy things. And they can certainly send fragmentation. They can be very dangerous, but they don't have anywhere near the sort of capabilities. The pure physics of them are not the same amount of energy to yield. So when you have a pipe bomb, the FBI has significant protocols. So does ATF. All the render safe teams do. They can go over and they can grab these bombs and put them in with a robot into a containment device and eliminate the threat to the public, and then take them places to study them. And there's a demo range down at Quantico that I used to work at as a medic, and they would, work on pipe bombs full time. That's basically what the FBI's render safe mission is geared towards, because you're not likely to find like a C4 explosive in public. There's so much control on that type of equipment and high order explosives. Low yield explosives are relatively easy for them to handle. Doesn't mean they don't get hurt occasionally. It doesn't mean bad things happen, but it's worth knowing that we're talking about devices that were handled very illogically on the day of. And that's why I called you to the background. They actually get the time wrong. I don't know if it's funny to you or not, but in the background, the discovery of the pipe bombs, they're off by 15 minutes both times. in this,
At approximately, at 1 p.m., multiple law enforcement agencies received reports in the vicinity of yada yada yada.
And in
approximately
reality, by the way, that was at 12:43 the first bomb was discovered. So they're off by like 17 minutes.
At approximately agencies in the vicinity, was that the first one?
That was the first one. Yep.
Okay, and then the second one, 1:15. No,
Yep.
look,
and that was found at 1:05. So anyway, just for relevance, usually you try to get pretty specific. They were not in this. I don't know why.
And I would say, when they say never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence.
Yeah, it's an FBI agent.
Well, I would, the improper disposal of the devices, I could chalk that up to incompetence or just, bad decision making.
Mhm.
Okay, so pipe bomber identified on surveillance footage. This is where we're starting to get interesting. Review of video surveillance footage from the evening of January 5th shows the pipe bombs at the RNC and DNC were placed by the same individual. The individual was observed on video surveillance. Now, this is in the hoodie, so nobody can recognize him.
Right. This is what Julie Kelly contests, by the way. So having listened to your discussion with her, this is the thing that she contests this very aggressively and says they were placed the next day.
Yeah, or picked up and then put back down later on.
And I don't think Steve Baker is actually disagreeing with that possibility. There's missing footage there that would explain whether or not they were picked up and put down again.
Yeah, that was my question as to what footage they had in terms of
missing.
Policing.
Yeah.
Video footage shows the individual traveling on foot through the surrounding neighborhood. This is the hoodie, but whether or not it's the same person, the individual placed the pipe bomb at the DNC at 7:54 and the other one at the RNC at approximately 8:16. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
January.
So for people's awareness, timeline matters, I think, to a lot of people as they try to wrap their head about it, and it may help you as well. The RNC bomb was found first before 1 p.m. The DNC bomb was found slightly after 1 p.m., but they were placed in the opposite order as seen on the footage the FBI has alleged. So the timeline is roughly DNC, the bush near the Congressional Black Caucus is what Steve Baker's team found, and then placed at the DNC. And then there's this disappearance from any video footage and surveillance, unavailable to anybody that's a researcher on the outside. I'm sure the FBI had it, and then pops up again on footage and places over at the RNC with a slight deviation in front of this congressional lodging house, which is like an apartment where staffers can live and a couple of Congress people do, and then placed at the RNC at the dumpster space. So the bombs were found in the opposite order, which they were placed, just as people are kind of grasping the story in their head, because I think it helps people understand.
All right. And then we get into the height element, which they say, he was identified on video. The pipe bomber is 5'7", and then they get into identifying Cole. He's 5'6", wears corrective glasses. Lives in the family house. Okay, fine.
Well, this is really thin on the identification end of it. I just think that's really interesting. All they can say is that he wears glasses, his height, he lives in Woodbridge, and he works for his dad at a bail bonds thing.
Again, I don't know if I'm being unfairly critical, if I'm looking to justify what I honestly already believe. Do they not identify weight? Because someone can be 5'6" and 140 pounds, or 5'6", 210. Like,
it is really, I'm telling you, this is really thin. This is a really thin, when physical description was critical in the analysis and the location of this person, the entirety of this affidavit is really thin. I'll give it to you like kind of in a high order. A guy who's roughly the right height and weight and lives in, let's say, the surrounding DC area, made purchases over a period of several years. Hold on, we just got to say what they are, like high level. He made some purchases of what could be regular household items, but might not be, and spaced them out over a period of over 2 years in order to then get found with his cell phone, not him specifically, they can't ID him, but his cell phone was generally speaking within some hundreds of yards of the general area at the time, and his vehicle was there. For all we know, this guy was running Uber Eats, or he was running down to a bail bond drop or something. Like, they don't actually make any allegation that he's the one who did it by any kind of, like, there's just not enough for probable cause as far as I could take it.
And I think you already got ahead of it, because I don't think I don't think people appreciate that the purchases are years in advance, and we'll get there in a second. But yeah, they didn't even mention weight. That's why, like, I'm looking for
no weight. And the other thing it's missing is ideology, which is really common, because you'll notice they didn't do a terrorism charge, and they've been claiming this was a terrorist case for a long time. You can do a search for ideology, terrorism. There's nothing as far as motivating factor. All we know is he's a 30-year-old man who wears glasses, and he's 5'6". And apparently that's enough for us to go, aha. And
they'll go with the coincidences. Okay, if he did purchase the similar items or the actual items. I don't think these things are serialized, but some of the stuff might have been. But let's get
Yeah,
to.
we'll go into how much it is. Let me just tell you, like, definitively, I have also purchased these things, and probably in the same time frame, because when people start realizing what they are, they're actually not uncommon at all.
Well,
That's why they're.
or if they're sufficiently common, and if they want.
I mean, I think Janine Pirlo said 200 and something thousand end caps have been purchased in this country. It's like, yeah, because it's just really common.
Well, Kyle, how tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
They might be setting you up as the pipe bomber, man.
Oh God, that would make my day. That would be so fun.
Let's go. Listen, that's actually kind of funny. FBI identified one banking account. So they got a bank account.
Right.
FBI obtained records for the checking accounts and 3 credit cards. The guy had 3 credit cards, which is interesting. I don't know.
No, 1 bank account and 6 credit cards.
For the checking account and 3 credit cards for the time period 2018 to 2021. So he had 3 credit cards during.
So they identified he had 1 checking account and he had 6 different credit cards, and they identified during that time 3 credit cards. I don't know if those are.
I see what you're saying. 3 additional credit cards were obtained for the same period. FBI reviewed the transactions for all. Okay, during 2019 and 2020, we are now 1 to 2 years out of the event. Cole purchased multiple items that were used to manufacture the pipe bombs. Cole used accounts. Okay, fine. This is what he bought. So both pipe bombs were manufactured with 1 by 8-inch galvanized pipe with markings consistent with a particular manufacturer, the pipe manufacturer, product labeling. Cole purchased a total of 6 galvanized pipes of this size and shape, June 1, June 8, November 16, 2020. So we're over a year out. Purchases were made at 2 different Home Depot locations. According to the pipe manufacturer, approximately 26,000 of these items were sold in 2020, and 22,000 were sold to Home Depot. Let's stop there.
There.
He's buying, what is this, 1 inch by 8 inch? What is this thing? This is
it's a 1 inch thick galvanized pipe. It can be used for gas. It can be used for a couple of other things. It's also very commonly used in sort of do-it-yourself industrial looking stuff. And I say that as someone who's used this. It's kind of tacky, I mean, at the end of the day, but restaurants will do it. You buy yourself a floor flange, which has 4 screw points. You put it into a piece of wood. You screw in this 8-inch piece, and then you put a 7 3/4 inch piece of wood on top of it, and you have yourself a cool looking, inexpensive shelf. So that could be it. It's also a piece of joint work. So when you're using hard, rigid pipe, you can't bend it around places. So you use a 90-degree elbow and you put an 8-inch on there, and you can skip around from one side to another. So galvanized pipe is used for gas pipe. It's used for moving water sometimes. It could be used for electrical conduit if you're trying to do it because it needs to handle certain elements. I don't know. Like, people buy galvanized pipe all day long. Whenever I go into the pipe aisle, which is not uncommon for me because I am constantly buying things like this, it's normal to buy this. And you can buy it in all kinds of lengths. And the longer it gets, obviously, the heavier and the more expensive it is.
This is the one. So it's 8 inches long is basically what 8 inches long. This is the pipe. We're going to get to the pipe caps. Then we're going to get to the timer. Then we're going to get to this cables, which I didn't know that the cables were serialized. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So that's the 1 inch by 8 inch pipe. And then we're going to get to the caps. Let's get to the caps now.
Okay.
So I look, if I'm not being overly cynical, that's a coincidence. If this guy's even buying them, and why would he be buying them? I'd like to know if there was construction going on at the house, but I've never bought.
Yeah, I want to know if they have like some industrial looking shelves, which were all the rage in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021, like onward. A lot of people did this. And then of course, if you're buying pipes, you're probably buying either end caps or something similar. You're buying a flange or an end cap because pipes have to be terminated at some point. They end somewhere, especially if you're doing something cosmetic. So anyway, I'm just saying these are not uncommon things to buy, and they exist in every single Home Depot, and they're not controlled items. And the fact that they honed in on this, and then the 233,000 black end caps, which were distributed in 1 year.
Let's get there. So now both pipe bombs were manufactured using end caps. We just saw the picture of that, which were used to close it. Fine. Pipe bombs placed inside the RNC had a mix of both black and galvanized end caps. The end caps had markings consistent with pipe manufacturers' labeling.
I just ask why that is right up front. Like, why would you? You're intentionally using 2 different end cap colors and styles. Like,
well, I'm just wondering how many manufacturers of the pipes are there? If there's only one, the fact that it has the same manufacturer's product labeling is going to be answered. But okay, Cole purchased a total of 12 black end caps, 2 galvanized end caps from 4 different Home Depots in Northern Virginia, October 2020. So we got in October 2019, July, November 2020. According to the pipe manufacturer, 233,000 of these black end caps were distributed in 2020, including to Home Depot. So what I understand here is they're not even able to specifically identify that the ones he purchased were the ones he purchased from Home Depot because they're not
Right.
individually serialized.
Yeah, no, it's like you got a 2x4. How many 2x4s did you buy? These things are just building equipment.
Both
Anyway,
pipe bombs.
this is look, if there was a lot more than this, you'd be like, okay, got it. But this is the case that you guys are getting to. Like, this is the case that he had things that looked like the things that were on the ground.
Well, I mean, to me, who doesn't buy these things, this would be a massive coincidence. But there might be very plausible explanations. Why would he have to go to 2 different Home Depot locations if they're so prevalent at Home Depot locations? I'm going to read the chat in a sec just to see what they think.
Look, I don't know, but look, you're also talking about someone over a period of 2 years prior to this thing, and the last purchase that, unless my memory serves, was like over 2 months prior to this moment. You know, on January 6th, January 5th. It's just a bizarre storyline that they're going to do that. He went to Micro Center. We can read that about the 9 volts and stuff.
So both pipe bombs were manufactured using a 9-volt battery connector with attached red and black wires. The 9-volt battery connectors used in the pipe bombs had identifying information on the black and red insulated wires. Well, identifying, but does it limit? Did he pull it off another device, or did he? So, like, I don't know what he actually bought here, but they had identifying things on the red and black insulated wires consistent with those distributed in North America by known company and its predecessors, the 9-volt distributor. So it seems like every 9-volt battery thing is sold by this or distributed by this particular company in America. So all of them are going to have these identifiers. So anybody who used that for it would have those identifiers on it. Cole purchased 5 of the 9-volt distributors. 9-volt battery connectors. Okay, so Cole purchased 5
2019.
Yeah, but 9-volt distributors. He purchased. I can't read this. 5 of the 9-volt distributors, 9-volt battery connectors from Micro Center in North Virginia on November 12 and December 2018.
You know what a Micro Center is?
No.
So I don't think they have them in everywhere, but Micro Centers are they're like a Radio Shack on steroids. They're like a massive, like, you can go and buy circuits, and you can go buy like little kits, and you can buy all kinds of little pieces of electronics. So,
I mean, I guess the one question I would have is what else if these things are basically ubiquitous to technology, what else would you buy these 9-volt battery things for?
Oh, anything. I've got some at my house. Like, we have little model kits for my kids. You plug in the 9-volt battery and you can power like little wheels and spinning things and lights and like all kinds of stuff. Like, so at the end of the day, these are just things, like, nerdy people use them and they make stuff out of them, and they used to do it all the time. If you go to, like I said, historically, like, the Radio Shack was the place you go. Everything you needed to build, like computers and bombs and all the other kind of stuff, they used to be in Radio Shacks. Now they're in slightly bigger stores. They're the bigger box version, and that's what a Micro Center is. They used to have a thing that was called Fry's Electronics. It was like a nerd mega store. I used to go in there and I'd buy a circuit board and I'd go buy a video card, and you buy a casing and specific fans. I've got people that listen to my live chat that have like mailed me fans to cool off stuff, and they've got little connectors and stuff. So people buy 9-volt connectors for God knows what reasons. Or maybe you're just trying to splice it into, you could splice it into a little battery box and run like some LED lights. Who knows what the hell it was? But the fact of the matter is, it's not that uncommon. And again, if this was like one part of the bigger thing, and you're like, he's got an ideology and he's made threats, and his friends all, claim that he was a bomb guy, or he previously had done something. He randomly 2 years prior was building like up a small little variety to make 2 pipe bombs.
Well, and they say he purchased it with cash. I'm including cash purchases made during the December transaction. How do they? I'm curious as to how they trace that.
They can't. I don't know.
I mean, how they even assert that? Because like he paid with cash. So did they find a receipt?
Yeah. Where's our cash? I'm looking for that. Where does it say that?
It's on. It's the top of page 4.
Top of page 4, including cash purchases. Yeah, no idea.
Because I mean, so
unless he had a frequent buyer account, and I can't remember if Micro Center does that or not. It's been a long time since I've been into one, but maybe they do. Maybe they have like a rewards program, and he like bought them with cash.
So they say fewer than 8,000 of 9-volt distributors, 9-volt battery connectors were distributed in the United States between 2017 and 2021. Okay,
all right.
Both pipe bombs were manufactured using white kitchen-style timer. This is the one where I could imagine they can more easily identify it. Cole purchased 2 white kitchen timers from Walmart in Northern Virginia on or about June 3rd, 2020. So we are 7
months prior to devices being left.
Yeah, no, but if he did, I'm saying like this is, I say strong or weak. These are unique items for me. I would never buy any of these things. Maybe when I was a kid, Viva purchased saltpeter from Jean Coutu down on Green Avenue, and then
Ooh.
they stopped. That's our local pharmacy, but that's when they sold potassium nitrate in pharmacies, and then they
Yeah.
realized people were using it to make smoke bombs, so they stopped selling it.
Yeah.
So these things seem unique. Like, so he bought the Walmart timer, which was the
Yeah.
thing that we saw. Now he purchased the white kitchen style timer.
Mhm.
Oh, both bombs were manufactured using a white kitchen style timer. Cole purchased 2 white kitchen timers from Walmart. So this is the question that I
Wait,
have.
are they the same ones?
Are they the same ones? Like,
I want to know. It just seems really interesting that this is the deal. On
but
top of all,
but that this is how it's drafted, because this is almost drafted to be misleading or confusing.
it feels that way, but
They have serial numbers.
let's get broader. Let me just, again, I'm going to zoom out.
Yep. Let me back out while you zoom out.
Okay, here we have a guy that it took the FBI, which is a highly competent, despite my dislike of the FBI, it's a highly competent investigative agency, and to say otherwise would be foolish. And they have some incredible technology and tools at their fingertips, especially like cell phone analysis and things like that. And so we're supposed to believe that this guy, who is apparently a super spy and a super bomber with a superior intellect, that planned out dropping bombs years in advance. And he was so capable of planning this out that he used fucking credit cards that could be traced to his own name, and then carried his own fucking cell phone around while he did it. So just hear me out. He's a super bomber that, starting in 2019, concocted a plan that he was going to build slowly the pieces for a device. And then he was going to use those devices for some maybe unknown nefarious purpose in the future. But he was so smart about it that he occasionally used cash, but also his e-rewards card or something, and then his credit card with his own name on it. And then he amassed these things up for months and months. And then he built these things, and he kept all of his DNA off it. And there's no trace evidence that goes on because they didn't say any of that. And so they've got all these things. And then he goes and he drops them while carrying his own cell phone. And you only have to be like, I don't know, an amateur movie watcher of a mediocre series of movies to realize, what do they do every time they want to stop being followed? They drop the phone in a glass of water, they break the phone, they stomp it, whatever. He carried his own tracking device with him at that time. All of this stuff is hilariously silly. And again, I'm just left with, there's no why in there. Almost always when you make the thing, this person did it, and this is the reason why they would have done it. This is why people do this sort of thing. What's the reason?
Well, I mean, from what I understand, we'll see whether or not he was known. From what I understand, his father was owns a bail bondsman company, was a private investigator, and which means he might have had some connection to intelligence, or intelligence might have had some connection to them.
Oh, I don't know, man.
But set that aside. Let me just get back to this.
He's a 30-year-old guy that lives at home, as you said earlier. We also should add that. And the dad runs a bail bond thing, which has been, it seems like it's been, he had an issue where his bail bond license was taken away and it was reinstated. I could be mistaken, but I did go do some reading on that. I did my own sort of open source on it. So all of that is hard to look. I have a hard time with super spy, evades the FBI for 5 years, uses credit card, carries own cell phone, drives own car with license plate through license plate readers in Washington, D.C. Silly.
I can't get past this now that I read it slower. Both pipe bombs were manufactured using a white kitchen style timer.
Right. And this guy bought 2 white kitchen style timers, unknown if they were the same ones. No claim that they were.
The FBI has the white kitchen style timers. They have the timers that were on the bombs. They know exactly what they were. Why don't they say, if it was the same two, and if it turns out to be the same two, like those items are serialized. And now that I say it, we bought kitchen timers because we have the freaking egg timers in the kitchen.
Yeah.
If those are the same and they're connected, that's where I might start getting convinced, unless I say they're manufacturing all of the evidence.
Yeah.
But why don't they say that if that's the case?
I don't know. And then apparently he bought safety glasses, which is commensurate with building a bomb. I kid you not. I will read the actual words.
We're not there yet.
Hold on. He bought safety glasses, which is used to facilitate bomb manufacturing, apparently.
Hold on. We're still at both pipe bombs used a mix of 14 gauge red and black electrical wire.
So what?
Cole purchased 14 gauge electrical wire May 23rd. That's my birthday, 2019. Okay, so he bought more and more wire.
In 2019, though, he bought electrical wire.
That's not sufficient. Okay, both pipe bombs were packed with steel wool.
Right.
Cole
when did he buy the steel wool? I can't remember. It says when he bought it.
December 4, 2020. But steel wool is something that we all have. That. But then maybe I'm just being too nitpicky. I would imagine they can identify the type of wool one company to the next.
Oh,
Like,
I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe.
I would imagine. Okay, so then
It
now
doesn't say that. It doesn't
we
say
get
that.
into the safety glasses, Kyle. This is where you know that.
It's
In
so
addition to
funny.
purchasing each type of yada yada yada, Cole purchased equipment that would facilitate manufacturing the pipe bomb, including safety glasses 9 months earlier.
A wire stripping material, like a wire stripping tool.
Is that a Swiss Army knife? Because I've got
No,
one
it's
of
a
those.
it's a wire stripper. Like, why
No,
did he not have more of them? I imagine he probably like dropped or lost his other one because everybody has wire strippers. I have
No, the
5
wire
of them in a
stripper,
bin outside.
they literally have it on the Swiss Army knife. The fat Swiss
Yeah,
Army
they have those too, but that's not what you want to use for actually stripping wire. But
Well,
anyway, yeah,
that's
wire
the
stripping tool.
wire nuts.
Mhm.
These
You
nuts-
literally get them every time you buy any electrical device or anytime you go buy a bin of them. They cost nothing. They're
This one-
useful all the time. Yeah.
sandpaper. He
Yeah,
bought
everybody's finding out now that they have bomb manufacturing materials at their house right now if they're a grown man.
a machinist's file, a tool for shaping and smoothing metal parts,
Right. I've got that too. I've
Protective-
got a drawer full of them. So
protective
anyway.
gloves, and disinfecting wipes.
Yeah, you can't have gloves or wipes in 2020 when they were doing COVID stuff.
That was. It reminds me.
Do you
of
know
that-
how many people were doing home improvement weird things during 2020 during this time because of the fact that like everybody was shut down in Northern Virginia? Like I lived in Northern Virginia at the time. And so that's the funniest thing is like, it was a ton of people they couldn't go to work. They weren't allowed to go sit in an office. So all these people were getting paid to do renovations at home. Just saying.
I want to see what the chat is saying about this because as we read it out loud, you can either say, "Holy crap, this is airtight," or the exact opposite.
Yeah,
Following the placement of the pipe bombs, Cole continued to make purchases of components used in bomb making. Did he make any other bombs at his place? We're going to find out, but that's going to bring us to the next part. For example, on January whatever, he purchased a white kitchen timer and 2 9-volt batteries from Walmart. He purchased two.
Where's the Google search results that they would have done on this guy to find out that he did that? Because that's an easy slam dunk. It's like then he also Googled the following. That's what I'm saying. When I say it's thin, I mean they're like this doesn't mean that this is not good information. It means it's thin because it lacks the meat that you would say, aha. Yes, as a judge, I agree. There's probable cause.
Or it's what they needed to get the arrest warrant, and they're going to have his Google.
You usually have to put more than this in. That's what I'm getting at. I just. If I'm a judge reading this, the judge is the only person that gets to defend the civil liberties of the individual that's going to be searched or arrested. Well, they're the only one.
Call me a bad judge. I would have issued the arrest warrant based on this, but I'm not sure I would convict based on this.
This is why you're Canadian.
Yes. I'm guilty. I mean, yeah, I might be easily manipulated. I'm
just saying.
So we get Cole's location January 5th. This is where we get into the cell phone data. So since at least as early as January 5th, 2021, Cole has been the user of a specific telephone number associated with his cell phone. Okay. Mm-hmm. FBI obtained historical cell site records associated with cell towers. Now, this is bringing me back to the Fannie Willis knocking boots with Nathan Wade. Okay. And I'm not sure they were trying to ping the towers to see where they were both in the same room, within the same vicinity, driving towards each other for their lovemaking sessions. So historical cell site records associated with cell towers provide location data, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So they're going to go by pinging the cell towers in DC. Mm-hmm. Records obtained from the cell phone provider that provides service to Cole. I don't know why they have to draft it like retarded. Including historical cell site records associated with the location of the devices on the provider's network. Providers' records include location data for the devices that engaged in transactions, including voice calls, text messages. Okay. Each of providers' cell phone towers in the vicinity of the RNC and DNC have sectors that provide coverage for the particular tower. Each sector of a cell phone tower provides approximately 120 degrees of coverage. Due to the real-world conditions, yada, 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 the actual coverage of any particular day can extend beyond. Okay. For each of the cell phone can we just get to this already?
So what they're telling you, though, so people understand, is there's basically an origin point and an azimuth, an angle at which you can get the cell phone sector that comes out. And when we get these things, we get what's called a cone of uncertainty. We'll get a picture that says the cell phone was determined to be in this general area. And that means they could be 1 meter away from the tower, or they could be 1,000 meters away if they're within this sort of zone.
Well, that is my
Then
question.
when you have overlapping towers, then you can start seeing, okay, well, we know it was also in this overlapping part of the thing. So that starts limiting those sectors. So just imagine people, a beam of light, like you've seen every flashlight in every cartoon where the flashlight comes out and it gives you a beam. That's what they show you on these these findings. And so it's a computer model. And if it pings on more than one tower, then you get another flashlight that comes in. And so the overlapping area, like a Venn diagram, that's what we know that person was probably in. So the more you get for towers, yes, people are saying triangulation in the chat. I know what it's called. I'm just trying to visually help people understand it.
Dumb it down for the Canadian.
The more overlapping sort of like angles that are coming out, the better off they are. The closer that the towers are together, the more accurate and precise they can be because they have a smaller, narrower subsection of the cone. But for whatever it's worth, that's what they're trying to explain to you here, that there is a science to this, and it is a science, but it depends on, one, how far away you are from the tower, how many towers are in the area.
That's
right?
what I'm trying to Google actually right now to see if I can find a map of the location of cell towers.
It's harder to find than you think. It depends on, like, rural areas. It's a lot easier to find out. People who are in rural know where the towers are. People that are in cities, generally speaking, they're kind of hard to find. And it should be really good coverage in those areas. So you should get more than one. Each provider's thing in the area of the RNC and the DNC have sectors that provide coverage for a particular tower. Each sector from there provides 120 degrees. Yeah. So what they did is they were just doing this analysis. This is what's called CAST. I used to sit next to a CAST guy when I was in New Mexico. They're very good at what they do. I mean, it's a lot easier when there's not like this massive urban area. We had a lot of issues trying to locate people with just CAST analysis when we were doing things like trying to find drug dealers' phones, trying to find human traffickers' phones, and so on in the area. It wasn't actually that easy because there's a pretty good wash in these places. So you don't get as much precision as you hope. Just for whatever it's worth. Usually got like regions, like they're within a couple 100 yards of this, or 300 yards, or 500 yards.
How many towers do you figure would be in the DC area? Are we
talking about there's like, I don't know, tons.
Okay.
there's a lot of towers. It's not like single digits. It's not double digits. It's triple or quadruple digits. For all I know.
So then we're going to get into it. 7 transactions between the Cole cell phone and providers' towers occurred at approximately 7:33, 39, 44, yada yada. Okay, the time, the relative time frame.
That's when he's pinging against the tower.
Yeah. During this time period, the Cole cell phone had transactions with 5 different sectors of the towers. So we got number 1 here, 7:39. Cell phone interacted with a particular sector of provider tower, and they give you the name, which faces southeast. I mean, this is why I don't know what this looks like on a map in relation to where the bomb was placed. From its location at 103rd G Street, Southwest Washington.
Yeah, I almost just kind of scan through this stuff for people because it's going to be boring. It tells you essentially that faces in a certain direction. And maybe this is really convincing to a judge. Maybe this is what convinces the judge. Yeah. But what I want to see is, did the video footage of the pipe bomber in the hoodie using the phone at specific times coordinate with specific tower hits in the specific section at that specific time? That for me is how we know that it was the right person.
Yeah.
And there were probably like dozens of people in that area. But if you went from sector to sector and showed that for all of the video footage we had of this person interacting with the phone, that it corresponded with the proper tower at the right time on the route, then I go, okay, that's more likely than not. That is not what I read from seeing this. What I saw was that they did not say specific interactions or specific data exchanges that were happening. It just said that this phone pinged. The phone is always pinging these towers. Whenever it's in footage, it grabs a tower.
Every now and again, but I assume it pings immediately when you're doing something like a call, receiving a text, sending a text.
The data transpiring, there's a data record that shows you what happens when there's, information coming into your phone and out. Obviously, that's what toll records are for the phone. So this is the weird part of it. Like, they give you this sort of like tracking of where they think it was.
But they know where he was because they have it on video per minute per second, the route that he walked.
Yeah, this is why I like when I read this, all it said was that it was like sort of he was in the area, that his phone was in the area of the places that were consistent with walking route. What I don't hear is that phone, when we pulled the cell phone records for that specific phone by a search warrant, which by the way, they could have done well before they ever executed a search warrant on the guy or an arrest warrant. You'd think that would have been the thing they did. They subpoenaed the records from the cell phone company and said, we have corresponded the guy on the phone texting or the person taking a phone call in the hoodie with this particular phone number, and now we've locked it up. And that would be a much better thing. All that would say is that phone was involved. It doesn't mean that he was carrying it.
But that would be a little bit tougher, not to deny, but you say we can trade. Here's his map.
Yeah, that's the meat on the bone.
Like we have his itinerary as to what he or she walked, the pipe bomber. And we have the pings per text messages, and it overlays identically. I guarantee you the autists at 4chan would be able to do that, given the adequate information.
Steve Baker's guys can do that.
That's it. And they might even be able to disprove it based on the information given here, that this might not even line up with the known trajectory of the Jan 6, the individual who actually placed them. Then it goes say, even if it overlapped, ping per ping, and it was a direct, fingerprint over fingerprint. Well, that just shows that that person had that phone. That doesn't show that that guy in the hoodie was Cole.
No, and here's where it gets worse. Cole's credit cards or his purchasing accounts were done in Washington, D.C., which proves that he has been in Washington, D.C. sometime.
Yeah, well,
he lived in Woodbridge. That's the next part.
You got to have it. So Cole is the registered owner of a 27 Nissan Sentra with a Virginia license plate.
Right.
On January 5 at 7:10, Cole's Nissan Sentra was observed driving past a license plate reader at the South Capitol Street exit from Interstate 395 South, which is less than 1/2 mile from the location where the individual who placed the devices was first observed on foot. And correct me if I'm wrong. Am I going crazy, or did the suspect, the hoodie guy, not exit a subway or not use the subway?
No, we don't know if there was a subway involved.
Okay.
So the person pops up, and this is the allegation that there was a connection to law enforcement or had some awareness of law enforcement's abilities, because Baker's team, which was tracking this, no one knows where this person pops up. They popped up as though they were avoiding cameras for like ditching a vehicle and so on and so forth. So we've got a vehicle, for whatever it's worth. We're talking about Interstate 395. I used to drive on that every day when I went home from work for several years. It is a massive interstate. Like, it's the same as I-95 if you live in Florida. It's the same road that goes all the way up and down. 395 is the little section that goes through DC. There are thousands of cars that drive past there in a few minutes' time. So, okay, cool. So he drove through. So all we've established is that he's got a vehicle, that he goes to DC sometimes, and that he was generally speaking sort of in the area and could have been there. But not, like I said, for probable cause to believe, I got a really hard time saying that this is PC. It shows that he bought some things over a period of 2 years. And for me, I put it in the bigger context of, how in the hell did the FBI not figure this thing out years ago? How did they not figure it out? This is, I was talking to one of my buddies who's an agent. He was like, this is seriously like less than a week's worth of work to be able to pull this stuff down.
Yeah. No,
which is why you'd think they would have had it right away.
Well, unless they did and they ignored it for reasons for the prior.
In which case they would have found it sometime in March.
Yeah.
Or February, or they would have found it in May or June. Like, why did it wait until Steve Baker's guy came out and they did their statement? So all of this stuff, it's way thinner than the stuff on the other end. And then you still have to explain, how did this person, who, as far as we can tell now, and based on the affidavit, has zero connection to law enforcement, how did this guy put these things down if he's the guy who did it? And then Capitol police officers went and found that bomb in 11 minutes and 7 seconds from the time they exited their car, and never looked for another one, even though, per this, there were 6 apparently. There were 6 pipe bomb setups bought, right? He bought 6 tubes and 12 different end caps. So where are the other bombs? And how come they've never been dropped? And how come nobody ever seemed worried that there was going to be another pipe bomb in Washington, D.C.? Not a single congressperson has said, I will not go into the Capitol until someone catches the pipe bomber who's been dropping bombs around here and has never been caught. Nobody seems to give a shit. That seems crazy to me.
And we're going to get to the lack of whatever required due diligence ought to have been exercised when raiding this house, if indeed it's a suspected pipe. So, and we don't know if this guy has a criminal record. Okay.
Yeah, no, agreed. I've got about 10 more minutes. Just
good. So we're at the end now. So the FBI,
yes.
So the rest of this, what was it? The FBI has analyzed Cole's purchase history associated with the accounts. He made 5 purchases in Washington, D.C. in 3 years. Okay.
That just means that he's been to D.C.
Yeah, I've been to D.C. I made more purchases in D.C. Approximately 3 weeks before the pipe bombs were placed, December 14, he made a purchase at a restaurant located. So he went to a restaurant in D.C.
Yeah, that's it. Like First and D Street. It's not that close.
It's amazing.
It's
taking pictures of taking pictures of the dumpsters, that can be written off. But
oh my God, man.
3 weeks earlier.
I have an entire notebook full of notes of ridiculous things that made sense without any of this stuff. And it's like, he went to a restaurant. How about the guy that the FBI put us outside of, the person of interest 2 that you and I have talked about it so many times? And that individual left the metro station on January the 5th, took off his MAGA cap, put on a disguise. So it wasn't the boyfriend. I was mistaken. That's just a guy that was changing his look, which is a really effective look. He took off the MAGA hat. He put on a hunting cap with ear flaps, put on sunglasses, wore a mask, and then beelined it to a dumpster to take pictures for his numerals book, which has never been published, which, by the way, we know who Person of Interest 2 is. We know what he does for a living. We know that he's never written a book about numerals. We know that he's never posted anything on social media about his interest in numerals or numerology or DC number plates or anything else. He took a picture at the dumpster. He wandered around. He took another picture that was commensurate with the boarding house that I mentioned, where the pipe bomb was maybe initially considered. And then just before he got back on the metro station, he went back to the dumpster and took another picture in the dark of the dumpster, and then got on a plane with a train with 3 minutes to spare, and went back to the place where we were supposed to be surveilling later on. So the funniest thing is that, like, you take the totality of the circumstances. This is a stupid, silly story of a guy who was doing home renovations in Woodbridge. And then lastly, as you said, you watch the footage from the helicopter, right?
So let me preface this. Once upon a time in Montreal, we had a gas leak like halfway down the block. They evacuated us from our house and everyone on the block. It was fun. It was exciting. They're raiding a suspected explosive device dude making house, and they don't evacuate the neighbors in the vicinity.
Right. Not only that, but like, not just that he may have made these bombs, like they used the probable cause statement to say that he has 6 tubes, which they've alleged were used for bombs. So he has the makings theoretically of others. What I don't see in there is the gunpowder that was relevant. I don't see any of the ammonia or whatever the other kind of chemical mix was, where that is. So that's fairly interesting. You've got tubes, but no bomb making material there. So tubes alone, again, that's renovation project. Electronics alone, that's renovation project. And maybe like you're making a nerdy robot or something. But there's nothing in there that is explosive, which is why nobody cares if you go and buy as many tubes as you want. You can go to Home Depot right now. One of your guys in the chat said, I bought 5 of those items this morning.
Yeah, Ninja.
Yeah, but I used bigger pipes. So here's the crazy thing. The neighbor to the left in this video that you're seeing over our shoulder.
Neighbor to the left is here. Do you see my cursor, right?
Yes, yeah, that one. Was not able to leave, attempted to leave, and was not allowed to leave.
So
but it's apparently...
Not evacuated.
Not evacuated, detained in space because they took over the space. Instead of saying like, hey, yeah, man, great idea. Why don't you get the hell out of here because we're doing a bomb investigation in your yard? They lock that person in the house. It's a 70-year-old person who was trying to get to a doctor's appointment.
Again, I might err on the side of incompetence there. I'll say, okay, yeah, there you go.
Anything is possible, but it's just like, yes, that may be a classic FBI stupidity. And I'm willing to say it because they filled up that. I mean, that's a pretty illogical fill up there.
The keyhole, she can't get it. Where are you going to go? Like, I'm blocked in.
Yeah, you make room though. We've moved things around when you got to get somebody out because the people are allowed to leave a search warrant. If they're not being detained, they're allowed to leave. They just can't come back. We used to let people out all the time. It's like, oh, you're the drug dealer's girlfriend or kid. Yeah, you can freaking leave. The neighbors can definitely leave. They have a right to travel away from their house, especially if you're doing a bomb investigation. Like, let them go. There's more to it back there that's crazy. These are open fences. They were digging in the yard that I saw from the helicopter footage. Those yards are not fenced. The thing behind it is a massive park system, which you can actually drive up to the back of that person's house. Got a buddy that lives nearby and said that there's a wedding venue and a historical road that runs right behind Manor House. So if you were to be able to show, actually, I could probably, you want me to show you on the map?
Yeah.
Real quickly?
You can bring it up. You can.
I think I can do that. I think we've played this game before.
We don't see any more of that video, but yeah, in your expert opinion, they would have evacuated the neighboring houses because the man is confirmed.
Yeah, I think it'd be irresponsible not to. I mean, especially if somebody wants to leave. Like, why would you not let them leave? Okay, so here's Manor House right here. You guys can see my cursor probably, right? So there's Manor House. This is the actual house right there, 4984, which was reported. Zoom back out here. You'll notice it's all woods behind, okay? And so this is part of the issue why I'm like, why are we even executing? Like, what is the search warrant about? This is a wedding venue over here. This is a wedding venue. Bel Air, 1740, wedding and events. This is a historical county road. Guys, I almost bought, listen to me. This is how crazy this is. David, I almost bought this house right here. I almost bought this house a couple years ago.
Beautiful
before I left DC.
You got a nice body of water behind you. I'm sure.
Yeah, it looked really cool. It was like, it's the original farmhouse that used to own all the space here, as far as I could tell, or one of them. It's backwards. The house faces the wrong direction. It's beautiful. So anyway, this is an area that I'm really familiar with. I've got friends that live in this neighborhood. This particular wedding venue has this historical county road, which you can see sort of the pieces of, and then it disappears. Well, in reality, it actually finishes up down this tree line, and it goes up this area where you see kind of the shade. It's a drivable dirt road. So you can drive all the way up here. You can drive through the behind here. This says Nabesco Creek, but you can literally drive all the way around all of this. You can get around here. And there's a space that comes out right there. And then it continues this historical road. This is like an open space that's not maintained. And it goes to the Dale City Community Park. So this area where this guy's house is that backs up to, it's like a nightmare when it comes to establishing chain of custody, because you now have 5 years of difference and anybody can access this. There's probably not very many cameras. So what are you going to do? And you're not going to let this guy go home, or go to a doctor's office? Like, all of it. It's just really silly to me when I looked at how they handled the business of it. They obviously did a full court press. No disagreement there. But the thinness of this affidavit, which is where's the explosive parts of it? Like what says that he was the guy holding the phone? How do you know that he actually got to the areas on there? Again, the data trail should be there. And that shouldn't be hard to do. They've had 5 years to do this. If this was a legit thing where they've been, I know a little more than I can say right now because it's just not my thing. I don't want to expose anybody that's been working on this, but it doesn't make any sense to me that you would have that little when you're trying to talk about this. And like, if I was going to try to set somebody up, here's the thing. I had two different FBI agents say the same thing.
Take the thing out of the backdrop.
Let me drop it. Hold on. I'm controlling that now, aren't I?
Yeah, I can't. I was trying to.
Yeah. Okay. So let me throw this out there because 2 independent FBI agents who are not associated with this brought me the same story. Both of them don't believe that this is real for whatever it's worth. But more importantly to me, they both independently said, what if this guy was caught with CSAM and they gave him an out and said, this is what we're going to hit you for? CSAM is child sexual abuse material.
Well, that hypothesis can never be really disproven because it would require the evidence that you're never going to have.
Well,
no, they got him. Oh boy. Did they get him? And with that said, Kyle has been raided by they said they just found the 5'7" guy. That's it. Let's see if he's going to come back. The theory that Kyle is floating is that they catch a kid with worse stuff and then promise him an easier out, which these charges, I don't know what the maximum sentence is to these charges. Okay, I thought they found the 5'7" guy, Kyle.
It's crazy. You can't even say it and they kick you off. That was really bizarre. And I have a router that tells me if I have any packet interference. I didn't have an internet drop. So anyway, very quickly speaking, now 2 FBI agents have independently told me that this would be an easy thing to do. And if I had a choice between going to prison for having child porn on my computer or claiming that I was the pipe bomber of J6, I'd go down for being the pipe bomber 10 times out of 10. That is
you'll have more. You might even have some support once you get into jail.
That is a way better thing to go down for if you had to go through it. Now, look, is that true? It's one of those random things. I just think it's funny that 2 independent people who work for the Bureau who do not believe the story that is being put out said. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, it's crazy.
It's amazing. No, it's amazing. So, first of all, just thank you for your insight because I don't want to make it look like I've got all this knowledge on my own, and thank you for elucidating what many people already believe. I mean, this it looks a little thin. I mean, the coincidences are enough that if it turns out that it's the same freaking timers, that's all you had to say.
Right?
Then you have
tie me forensically to it. That's what I want. And honest to God, they actually did owe us that. Whether they think they did or not, that was the right answer. If you can put that in your probable cause statement very clearly, DNA evidence tied this particular timer to the one that he has, or, we know for a fact it was the same manufacturer. Like there's plenty of things that could have done it. They left out a lot. My concern is, as should be everybody's, that our government has been lying to us. The people who are going to now go out and celebrate this as a victory for the FBI are the same people who told us this was a deep state conspiracy for a long time. So where's the deep state conspiracy part of this? Who's involved? And lastly speaking, Tom Massey and I were DMing earlier today, and he said, if there is not a large conspiracy of people that are part of the federal government that are behind it, that are involved in whatever this guy is, because we don't know very much at all, which is very weird. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have some connection to levers of power, access to Capitol Police, would have some reason to be there, ideology, et cetera, et cetera. If there's not like a broader plot than like some guy 2 years earlier did a bad job of planning out dropping pipe bombs and then didn't get caught for 5 years, Massey says it's going to be bullshit. His words, not mine. And I think that that's correct. You should just be skeptical about this stuff. Don't immediately trust the FBI. I sure as hell don't.
I was just with waiting to hear the evidence
at this point.
I was waiting to hear the evidence and heard none of it during the press conference. And then what is in the affidavit, like you say, it would be sufficient for me to maybe justify an arrest, but not necessarily a conviction, because there's 1,000 reasons why he might have had those things that are innocuous. But what we were told, inside job for years, and the timing of this, I'm skeptical, but open-minded. And so if
bring the proof. If we're wrong, that's fine. I'm happy to be wrong. I'm happy if they got someone who dropped pipe bombs. I don't believe it based on the totality of the circumstances, simply because 2 Capitol Police officers found those bombs in 11 minutes and 7 seconds from leaving their car, and they never looked for another bomb again. And even according to this affidavit, there should be 4 more potential devices hanging out there. So all that stuff is pretty gross to me.
Kyle, I almost always forget to say it. Where can people find you? And how can they?
Oh, I'm on Rumble. It's there I am there, or there I'm on X. I'm Kyle Seraphin everywhere you go. So Rumble, I'm Kyle Seraphin. YouTube, I'm Kyle Seraphin. X, I'm on Kyle Seraphin. Come give me all your hate mail. I'll love it. Come send me your threats. Apparently, some guy decided to send me threats on Facebook today. I don't even look at Facebook, but he told me someone was going to come and exact a punishment, and I just told him, don't send anybody you don't want back. Don't send anyone here that you're expecting to get.
I was hesitating bringing this one up. This one comes from Ultra Maga Girl 45. Viva, you're better than this. He is a fraud. First of all, I won't pick on your typo, but there's a typo in there.
Yeah.
If he's a fraud, you show me why. I've had enough discussions with enough people to know that the amount of people saying this unsubstantiated leads me to believe that you might be a little bit over the target, Kyle. So
feelings are why I'm a fraud.
Oh, and her name is Ultra Maga Girl. I mean, hey, fellow Magas, how are you doing today? Good?
Yeah, Kyle, not a MAGA guy. I actually had a guy that was asking me on Right Side Broadcasting today, and he's like, "Hey, man, will you come on and talk about the strategy for the midterms?" And I was like, "What strategy?" And he was like, "So that we can win the midterms." And I'm like, "Who's we?" And he was like, the movement. And I'm like, "Bro, I'm not in a movement. I actually hate the Republicans as much as I hate the Democrats because I wish the Republicans would do what they said, and they haven't. Nobody's de-weaponizing government. No one's like reducing it. I signed up for whatever it's worth. I signed up for the Donald Trump that was getting rid of the IRS and was going to fund it with tariffs. I'm cool with a consumption tax if we get rid of the IRS. It doesn't seem like that's happening. So like, I'm not going to tell anybody political strategies.
Well, Kyle,
I know.
I love your insights. We'll continue talking. And when anything comes up,
yeah, we'll play soon.
Open invitation.
Thanks, buddy. Good talking to you.
The same. Have a good one.
See ya.